Hello, so today, well, what have we got? We're looking at, here we go. Last week I did a tutorial demonstration, call it what you will, Scrapy Crawler, MySQL and Python. So I ran Scrapy Crawler and started sending the output to a MySQL database, and I did it without having to use the Scrapy framework, pipelines, etc. A bit of a learning curve because I'm only sort of starting to delve into MySQL with Scrapy, but I've used it before. I've used it with PHP and so on in the past, so a little bit familiar with it. I've had a request from Spicer 41282. Nice. Any chance in the future on how to create a crawler using a list or dictionary of keywords to search for automatically and placed on a DB? And that's somebody at the door. I will be back. Okay, so the first thing I would say about this is we'll use a list. There's no need for a dictionary here. The list will be something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of some words which I know will crop up, and the site we're going to use is the good old favourite books2scrape.com. And the reason why I'm going to use that is because I'm going to be doing quite a few test runs, and I don't want to complicate the issue using a sort of a site that that nobody's familiar with. So anybody who's sort of done a few web scraping tutorials will be familiar with this site, and yeah, I can scrape it many times and I'm not going to get banned. So yeah, that's good, isn't it? So yeah, as you can see, I've already kind of written the code. So let's go back over what I've done, because if you've watched the previous video, you'll know that I set up a Scrapy Crawler. The start URL's books2scrape.com. I connected to a database, and in the previous video I was just purely saving the URLs of all of the books, which is fine, but I mean, who really wants to scrape all of the URLs of all of the books on a site? Maybe you do, maybe you just want to do a copycat replica site or something, but as per this request, what we want to do is we want to search for certain words, and if those words occur in the titles of the books, then we will insert those book titles and those book URLs into the database. So you can see I've already done it and it's worked, so I'm just going to hide that and we'll come back to it and we'll do a demo at the end. So yeah, let's cut to the main point of this video, which is we've made a list. So line 43 here, let's just zoom in a bit. Line 43 equals this, using a list. So create a crawler using a list, and how do I get out of this? Windows. There we go. That is the list. So what I've done is so many books these days in the English language have the word train or girl in a train, on a train, under a train, I don't know. Train. And the other one I just saw cropped up a few times was murder. So you know, nothing sinister, but it just happens to be a word which crops up in a few book titles. Okay, so you know, there we go. ls title. So w search. That w means words. So I've just called it w search, word search. ls title. Now that's going to be. I'm going to create a list of the words in the book title. Just have a think about that. So I'm just going to drag this across here, which is something I did earlier. So what do I mean by that? Well, actually the book title occurs in the URL, which is nice. So if you look here, that's books to scrape, catalogue, there we go, wall and piece 971. The 971 is sort of the catalogue number or something. So wall and piece. But with all the URLs, I could go off and get the text or the href, but even then, I think it's more straightforward just to get the response or get the response URL. Wall and piece. So 3 words there, but they're all joined together. So what I needed to do, and rather than testing all this in Scrapy, which obviously would potentially have errors each time, and then you'd have to wait for it to finish or cancel it halfway through and then wait for it to catch up. I just simply did this. So what this is Sublime Text, and I've got the URL, and I just did this line to check I was splitting it in the right place. So I split it at the 4th /, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 0, 1. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that gets me to there. And then I wanted everything to the left of the underscore, so I split it again using finding the underscore. In fact, I probably could have just done that and selected the underscore anyway, but this is a bit more reliable by finding the 4th. I could have used URL lib as well, but yeah, just keep it simple. 4th / gets me to there. Then I look for the underscore, and using the index of 0, that then gets me these. And then I split here and here, which should then give me 3, well in this case 3 words. If there were 10 words in the title, it would get me 10 words. And then I do a list comprehension, and I say for each item in the split string, append the item to list 2, which is an empty list. And then obviously for each item in that list, so there's 1, 2, 3, it just adds those 3 to the list. So then I have a list of 3 words. So the 3 words there were wall and piece. And then I check if any of the items in my search criteria are present in my list of the words in the book title. Potentially you could have done that the other way around, but I think this is better. So I check for my search terms, and if any of my search so any is really useful. If any of my search terms are in the book title, then check is true. So with any, you get it's Boolean, so true or false. Then if check is true, so if any of the words in my search list are in the book title, we get true. And then if it's true, we don't need that anymore. We execute my query, which my query is an insert query. And my insert query is selecting my table called links. My table is in my database, and what is my database? My database is RSG database, but that's the code already knows that because I've set up an object, a MyDB connection object. So when we come to execute, the cursor execute, executes the query, and this, rather than put the values in here, we're obviously just putting, we're putting the percentage %s, which is string. So those values, that value is being inserted into the URL column, and that value is being inserted into the book column. And what are those two values? Well, those two values appear after the query, and they are X and book title, where X is the response URL. So the response URL ends up in the URL column in the database, and the book title, which is the book title, is the final result of what I've done with all of this. So really all of this Sublime Text example is really just me parsing the URL to find the words in the title and to check if any of those words match with my search criteria. So I hope all that makes sense. I'm going to put all this on GitHub for you to copy, modify, whatever. If it's not true, then we just pass, and then obviously the pass will then begin all over again for the next link that Scrapy finds. And obviously Scrapy's finding all of the links. So you'll see Scrapy, when it runs, it will find the links to the pages with the books on, and it will find other links. So yeah. Potentially I could have added a filter here, so allow or deny, and we could have been a bit more, what do you call it, granular with the links and which links we choose to visit with Scrapy. So a standard thing down here where I do the main driver, if name equals main, process equals crawler process, process equals process.crawl with the class name, process.start, and then right after that, which you don't always see, which on other spiders, which is crawlers, which don't use a database, you don't need those two lines, but all I'm doing here is I'm closing the cursor and closing the database, which is sort of good practice. So yeah, those two lines. Now, be careful, because originally I was putting those lines in there and then it was closing the database, and yeah, you only want to close the database once. You don't want to keep opening it, closing it, opening it, closing it. So the close, they happen once and they happen right at the end. Good. Okay, so if you'd like to see this in action, what I'm going to do next is let's go to part 2, which will be a quick look at the database that I've set up, the MySQL, aka mariadb. Okay, so this is the MariaDB, MySQL, SQL. Obviously there's various flavors of SQL, and then even MySQL has got MariaDB, and I think there's MySQL as well. So yeah, flavors do vary. It's a bit like Coke, really. Coke, Pepsi, they're pretty much the same, but they're not, if that makes sense. Right, sudo MariaDB, that will start up MariaDB. Now everything I'm doing here is command line, and if you don't like that, or if you're doing lots of this and there's no shame in using a GUI, then install PHP MyAdmin, which basically will display what we're seeing here in a browser. And PHP MyAdmin, it's ubiquitous, should we say. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, so we fired up MariaDB, so this is equivalent to opening up a PHP MyAdmin page. So now we want to just tell MariaDB which database we want to use. So we want to use rsg_db. So we've selected the database, and now we want to just if we just do show links. No, not show links. Describe links. DESC. There we go. So I've already made this database. It was create database and then table, create database rsg_db, create table links, and then I've created, it's got an ID which is auto increment. This isn't a database tutorial, by the way. This isn't a means to an end, so ID URL book. So we're storing the URL. I've allowed 100 characters for the URL and I've allowed 50 characters for the book name. Potentially I should have used text there, but I don't know what anybody else thinks. If anybody puts in the comments, I'd be interested to see if I should have really been just using text there or varchar. I used varchar just in case there's sort of, I think it might let me allow any sort of weird characters. Okay, so I've got a database. Inside the database you have one or more tables. Each table is a sort of a specific group of relevant, sort of related pieces of information. So links is the name of the table. Inside the table you've got the columns. This, if you're more familiar with Excel, ID URL book would typically be the titles of your first row, and there'd be the names of your columns. Good. Okay, so I think it's just time to run it. You don't want to listen to me talk all day, so let's go. What I'm going to do is, if I'm just going to make this on top, always on top, move this screen across a bit, and then because I've set up crawler process, just going to press F5 on Genie, which will run. It will run my crawler, and hopefully you can see that. If that's going too fast and you actually want to be nosy and see what's going on, then obviously you can just play it at half speed or quarter speed in YouTube. Or if you're watching me at twice speed because I talk too slow, then obviously, well, yeah. Just, while that's running, what I'm going to do is just come across here now and do select. Sorry about the typing, I've got a microphone cable going across the keyboard. Select all from links. Select start from links. And there we go. We've got 18 results. So, no. Was the database clear before I run that? Maybe it wasn't. Let's run it again. So to clear the table, sorry, not the database, to clear the table, we do truncate links. Now if I do show table or select from links, empty, okay. Yeah, let's just run it again. Now while it's, what's going on there? Let's close that. Right, while it's running again, sorry about this. Right, Scrapy's running again. If I just start running it now, you'll see select all from links, and there we go. As it's progressing, see it's gone from 1 to 6. It's still found 6, 7, 7th added the 7th, 9. So you can see the progress in sort of real time if you just do select stuff. There's no need to do it here really, but if you were running, you know, through 500,000 records or links, so to speak, then yeah, you can check the database in real time, which is really good, because when I did my food.com spider, that was about 500,000 records, and it was going to be saving it to a CSV right at the end, and it ran for about a day. Whereas if I'd been saving it to a database, I could have seen the records as it was going along, and had there been an error of that CSV file, then I would have wasted a day. Whereas obviously with this you can see the progress in real time. And right, okay, we've got 9 results, and if I just I don't want to move, right, just move that down. Okay, so inside parse item, if you're familiar with Scrapy, you'll know that start requests is sort of implicit, and start request passes a response back, and then that response I've then passed with parse underscore item. There we go. Sometimes the underscores go missing, and that's because of the, I don't know, the font size or something. I've tried to fix it in Genie, but it's not having it. So yeah, parse underscore item, which is doing the search for train or murder, and we've got train, M train, a murder in time. So that's found me train. That's found as murder. That's found as murder. 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 Train. Train. Murder. What would have been really nice would have been murder on a train. Maybe someone needs to write a book called Murder on a Train or Murder on the Orient Express, but anyway. I hope this has been interesting. It's, I think this is a very good way to web scrape large websites because, as I just mentioned, you can see your output in real time. You don't have to wait a day until it's sort of done its stuff and finally saves the CSV file. Obviously, a database you've got a lot of flexibility with it. And what we've done here is we've only actually outputted 9 records. Potentially, so what we're doing is we're passing the data before it actually gets sent to the database. And imagine if you had 500,000 records and you saved 500,000 records to a CSV, but only 9 of them were relevant. What's the point of that? You may as well pass the data you want before outputting it to a file or outputting it to a database. So here we go. This is really the focus of today's episode, and from line 42 down to line 65. Concentrate on that and then those 2 lines at the end. So I hope this has been useful. It's going to be on GitHub. If you'd like any additions or modifications or like me to take this further, then please comment. And if you've seen something that I've done wrong, yeah, please tell me. In the meantime, have a nice day.